Okay, today is a super pumped up day. Okay, I am like bursting. I'm so pumped up. Today we're gonna learn PG Promise. PG Promise. And I promise you, all right, I'll keep it PG. But even more importantly, because sometimes, this is what it's gonna tie it all together. This is the last crucial piece of information from this unit, which means an assessment is on the horizon. Although there's a big project that comes first for a little while. After today, you can build anything your heart desires. Essentially, we will continue to learn more in Unit 4, Season 4, about React, where things will be maybe a nicer way to do the front end. But we are able to make things on the front end, which we did in Unit 2. We did it with JavaScript, and we also had the ability to hyperlink to other pages. I don't know if you remember that, and we would see another HTML page. So we were able to make a multi-page application. We have our back end where we've now made APIs. We have a database. So today we're tying that database to the API calls. Okay? So this is I'm super stoked. I hope you're stoked. Are we ready to rock and roll? Yeah, okay. Yeah, come on, Ashid. This is like a pump. Get pumped up. Okay. Well, she is so pumped she had to stand up for the first part of the lecture. Okay. So the first part of this might be a little boring because we have to do all that boilerplate code that we've been doing so many times to set up a server. But it's been a few days since we've set up a server, right? So let's kind of quickly run through this. I'll call on you. We'll fly through it step by step, all right? So I've got an app.js. What's the first thing I need?
npm init.
All right, Danny, I like it. Well, npm init, right? This is initializing our package JSON. So I'm just gonna skip through this stuff, yada yada yada. Everything's cool with me. Okay, and then we have our package JSON. What do we need to do next? Sure. Okay. And let's install the works. Yeah. npm install. Let's say express cores body parser. Nice. Thank you for that catch. What was it? No one's installed globally on a machine, so I don't think we'll need that one. But I like that. If you haven't installed Node.mon, you probably should. What else? Anything else? We'll make that in a minute. What? Yeah, no daemon. That's Rafita. That should be globally made on our machine. Yeah. So these are the ones we've learned. Let's add one today called PG-Promise. That is one word. It's just the terminal is small. There you go. Okay, let's install all of this stuff. So we've been able to set up these databases, and but we haven't had a way of really using them outside of just hitting them with Postman or PG SQL or pSQL, right? Okay, so let's do this. Oh man, I'm like amped up right now. I can barely even focus. All right. What's the first thing we need to do when we're starting to set up this app now that we've got our things installed? Yeah, Marvin?
Express. Require express. Require cores.
Okay, so let's start requiring those packages. So we'll say express. This is to require cores. Let's say const cores. Require cores. I'm going to go ahead and also do body parser. Parser, not require body parser. Anything else we need up there? We're going to hang on for PG Promise. We're going to do that in a minute. Not quite yet.
You need to set up a route.
Yeah, let's start setting up routes. At the very top, what do I want to do first, though?
Port. Yeah, port.
Oh, we got to set up a port. Okay, I like that. Const port. Let's say 3000. I'm not looking at notes for this, so I really am also counting on your recollection. Okay, we probably should make an app, so let's do that also. Const app, we'll say is equal to express invoked. Let's do an app.listen. Let's go ahead and listen to our port. Pass on a callback function just so I can see a little message to myself. Log. Server running. Oops, on port. Let's go ahead and pass port. Okay. All right, this is a lot of boilerplate code. I'm going to go ahead and start to run this just to make sure it's working. So I'm going to say nodemon app.js. See if there's anything egregious. Nope, server running on port 3000. Looks pretty good. Okay, what else do we want to do? Yeah, Sim.
App.use or course.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and use our course and invoke that. This will allow us to avoid those cross-origin access errors that we all love. Okay, what else? Anything with body parser? Okay, what? Tell me, what's that look like? App.use, body parser, dot URL, URL encoded.
Extended. I mean, put an object. Yeah.
Okay, extended.
Colon.
Yep.
False.
False today. Okay.
Or whatever you.
Or whatever we want, right? Okay, let's do the other part of the body parser one. Let's say app.use body parser dot JSON, right? Invoke. I think that will work. Let me know if you notice anything that doesn't look right. What? Yeah, we should be good. So let's set up a couple routes. Let's pretend we have a table for users and pets. I think we've made that table, right? Maybe we can reuse that table in this project. Pretending I have that, let's go ahead and set up some. Well, not yet. Okay, let's do the table first. We'll set up one route at a time. How's that? So I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to just call it DB, short for database. This is a way I like to organize my data. I'm seeing this big seeing a big node modules folder. Let's go ahead and add our git ignore before we go too far. I'm going to add a new file, say dot git ignore. Whoa, is this all inside of node modules? Oh, it didn't put the git ignore in the right spot. Oh, I really hate that. We'll try it again. Dot git ignore, and that's just going to say node modules, right? Remember, this is so we don't push all of this extra stuff to our GitHub at the end. I made it. This is a folder called DB. We're going to put some things in there. Not too many things. Just starting to keep things a little bit more organized, because we're going to get a few more files and things. Okay, once we've made our get ignore, let's go ahead and build into our DB there. Why does it keep happening? Okay, so let's go, we'll select our DB and let's create a file called schema SQL. Sounds good to me. Yeah, schema.sql.
So DB was a folder.
Yes, saying that this is going to house my database. Okay, so we've got a schema.sql. And let's go ahead and borrow the code from the other day, shall we? So, I'm going to make, where can I find it? I guess I can find it on GitHub. GitHub/join pursuit. I'm just gonna, because I'm just doing this, just to keep things short. I don't think we need to rewrite it from scratch. We've been working on it a lot. 6.4 lecture notes. Go to Unit 3. We were in Intro to SQL Tables, schema.sql. And I'm going to go ahead and take all of this information. Okay. I'll post this in our Slack channel. Right, if you're not comfortable writing SQL tables yet, definitely go back to that part of the curriculum and do it some more. I'm just not doing it this lecture because it's not the main focus of today. It is, but it is a main skill that you need to have at your disposal. So I'll paste that in, and everything should be just fine. Okay, this is just to represent a project. I'm not really going to be using it because I've already got this table. I've already put this table as a database on my computer, which is all I really need. This is more of a representation to make it look more real to what we're doing. Okay, so in here I'm also going to add a index.js file inside of DB. I'm going to say index.js. And from inside of here, I am going to actually use our PG promise. So the first thing I'm going to do is require it. I'm going to call it PGP for PG promise. Of course, this is just a variable name, so you could call it anything. You could call it Corey's promise, right? Like whatever. Probably don't call it that. It wouldn't make that much sense. It'd be kind of odd. But whatever. Let's require, and I'm going to say PG promise. So PG promise gives us back this function, kind of like Express does. So we can invoke this right here. So I'm going to invoke that. And as an argument to this function, it takes in a options object of sorts. It can take in all types of different things, but for today, we're not really needing to do any special configuration, so I'm just going to pass in an empty object. Questions so far?
So invoking it that way is the same thing as invoking PGP.
On the next line. Yeah. So he's asking about invoking it that way and saying if it's the same thing as invoking it on the next line. Now that being said, Hey, welcome. This is a good class. I'm so pumped up. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. This this thing also returns a function. We didn't touch that too much in programming yet, but you can have a function that just returns another function. It kind of has something to do with something called closures. We will learn more about that stuff at a future date. Point is PGP right now is also a function. So I'm going to say const. I'm going to make a variable called DB, which stands for my database, and I'm going to call PGP. I'm going to invoke PGP, and inside of this, I'm going to tell my PG promise where my database is. Okay, so this is going to be a string that tells them where my database is. So it looks something like this. It's a string. I'm going to say it's Postgres, because that is our database that we're using. Colon, slash, slash. We are running locally, so I'm going to say localhost. Colon. Now we have to specify the port. If you didn't specify any specific port when you created your database, the default should be 5432. Okay, I know it's a little bit weird. This is just saying the exact database location that we want to listen to. Great question. No, so the app.js port is for our server. Our Postgres is also running. Like you have to have it running that. Let's see if I can get it in the screen. This little elephant, it needs to be running, and this is essentially creating its own service. So we've got our own server we built, and now our Postgres also has something, and we can access it on port 5432, unless you specifically changed it. It should be 5432. If you specifically changed it, you should put in the numbers you specifically changed it to. Most likely you didn't change it. Okay, and now we have to say the name of the database that we want to explore. So I think we called the last database Grover's Groomers. So I'm going to just copy that so I don't misspell it, because the stats of that are skyrocketing if I don't do this. Okay, and it's Grover's Groomers. I can't shrink that. Questions so far? Yep.
If we had Grover's Groomers for 4, do I have to kill it in Postgres? Does it matter that I copied that same info? This?
Great question. Okay, so there's a little bit of confusion about the topic. The question is, hey, I already have a Grover's Rumors from a couple days ago. Do I have to drop that and rerun this? My answer is no. Our SQL file that created that Grover's Rumors, that's only just creating this database on our machine. So I didn't have to put the SQL file even in this project because we already had the database. I just had to point our project to that database. The only reason I put it in here is just because that's more realistic to starting your own project, where you would have your database not from some other project, but probably in the project you're building. Okay, that's a great question. Okay, let's export. So that's just going to be module.exports, and I'm going to say that we can export DB. What's that face, Deja?
You're exporting the database by using that. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
you're totally right. right? This is exporting this database so that we can call methods that will use this database a little bit later. Soon, very soon, but a little bit later. Okay? So let's start to build on some routes. Okay, let's get pumped up. Yeah, hell yeah. Let's create a user's routes. Okay. So we're just gonna pause. I know we're like, well, I want to see this work. We gotta set it up, right? There's a little bit of a setup. That's most of this lecture is like setup. The actual new material will be relatively inconsequential to the rest of the setup. Okay. What's the first thing I want to do in starting this new project? Let's create a routes folder. I like that. Who said that? 10 points Gryffindor. I love it. Okay, let's do a folder. Let's call this routes.
You're gonna create a folder inside.
God damn it. Okay, it's out. Thank you for that catch. Inside of my routes folder, I'm going to create another folder. What should I call this one? Users. I like the sound of that. So let's say users. Did that just overwrite my routes? No. Okay. Inside of my users folder, what should I do? Yeah, let's create a file called users.js. So let's create a file, and I'll call that users.js. Cool. Yeah, Rafid.
Sorry, can you go to that one more time? The routes folder, what do you put?
In our routes folder, we're going to have another folder called users. And inside of our users folder, we're going to have a JavaScript file called users.js. Right? I know the naming feels repetitive. It might feel confusing because there's some like duplicating names, but honestly, it will be less confusing than if you don't do it this way. You're allowed to do it anyway because Express Node is super unopinionated. That said, it will help you remember where things belong, and you'll be able to read file structures a bit better. Doug.
Ruby sets all its stuff.
Sorry?
Ruby sets all its stuff.
Yeah, Ruby sets pretty much all the stuff for me very quickly with something called scaffolding. There is something that does it with Express too, a little bit, but with a lot less control than the way Ruby does it. Ruby on Rails is great. Someday, I encourage you all to like dive into that more if you're looking to expand your portfolio. It's a really fun language. But JavaScript is also so cool, so it's a win-win. All right, what's the first thing I'm doing in this file? The users file. Do we remember? How do I go about this? Yeah, Isaiah? Create the router. Okay. So const, we'll say users equal require, right? Require express. I can just do dot router here, right? Okay. Thank you. Should feel semi-familiar. What's next? What's next?
Don't we have to export it?
Okay, we could do that right away. Module.exports users. Thank you. Expots. I was going to write excons, but it made even less sense. Okay, what's the next thing I need to do?
the user's router in app.js.
Acquire the user's router than app.js. Okay, sure. Can we also let's also make a route.
Oh, okay.
Let's make a route first. Let's make a route to get all the users. Somebody help me do that. Yep.
User is gonna get
Yep.
just gonna do a backslash function.
Some kind of function, right? Request, response, and we'll
I guess that's .json.
all the users. Okay, right? We've seen something similar to this before. And then let's go ahead and do what Danny said, which was let's go ahead and require this in our app.js. So back in our app.js, we've got all of this stuff required. Let's also go ahead and just const call this users router, and we will require that from /routes/users/users. I think I can just write that, but I think JS is fine too. Why did it crash? Oh, the J. Okay, and then what do I want to do in here? What do I need to add in order to hit this every time I hit a user's route?
Use.
Yep, so I'm going to say app.use /user. So every time I go to a user's route, I want to go to my user's router. Yeah, Kong.
So is this the middleware?
Yeah, this is using middleware. Our app.router is kind of a middleware there. Although we can still send our final result instead, right? We're not really using it as the middle. Okay, what's the next thing that we really should do?
Can you go back to the users?
Yeah. What's the next thing that someone should do? Isaiah? Test, right? If you weren't thinking test, you should have been thinking test, right? We should always be thinking test. Dragabas, what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? No, test. You're thinking about test, right? The test. We got to think about testing always. And we're doing a relatively decent job of that. We are creating a route. We should check the route. So I am opening up Postman. Just can't see that it's happening. Rafid, what are you thinking about? Testing. How many people can I get? Hey, Sin, what are you thinking about? Nice, I love it. Music. That's music to my ears. Okay, let me just close this. Let's go ahead and open Postman. And so we have a route here. That's a get /users. I should be able, let me make this full screen. I should be able to hit send, and I should be able to see the users. I should be able to see requests. It says get all users or something. Yes, all users. That's what we told it to do, right? Cool. So we're getting somewhere. So what about now? Now's the part. Now it's getting exciting. We've set most things up. Let's make this a lot more exciting. Are we all at this part, or do we need more time to write stuff?
3 minutes. 2 minutes.
Do you need 2 minutes? Raise your hand if it'd be helpful to have 2 minutes to just catch up. Okay, yeah, 2 minutes, fine. Yes.
I'm glad you know this.
Stick with the same kind of naming convention, like lowercase, uppercase. All we've done right now is write that one little 3 lines. Oh my God, I'm so pumped up right All right. Are we good? Close? Nonetheless. All right. This is it. We're like so close. We got everything up to now. It's been a review, hopefully. If it's not a review, make sure you know what we just did. If it is a review, that's great. So now I want to set up another folder. Okay? For the whole outside level here. I want to. How do I make it so it's going to be on the outside like that? There. What? I think it's there right now. No? Where is it going to create right now?
In routes. Because you have routes.
Click the black space, and then click at. Anywhere, just click.
Yeah, that's where it is.
It'll highlight the.
All right, I'm going to take a risk. I'm getting confused. I'm going to call this queries. I don't know how to. I don't remember how to spell queries. Hang on. Q-U-E, yes. R. Yes, right. Okay, thank you. Queries.
And that's outside the route, right?
Right, so this is a new folder.
Okay.
Oh, it's not holding it.
It's empty right now.
Okay.
Just for a hot second, it's empty. I'm going to start adding files into our queries. First thing I'm going to add is a users file. I could put this in folders too if I wanted to maybe stay consistent. But for right now, I think I'm happy with. I don't plan on doing any more nesting or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a users.js file inside of my queries. What do we think these kind of queries will have to do with? Queries and users, right? Good. My naming convention is clear enough that you already have some idea of what I'm doing. All right. I'm pointing this out just because you can and will see different types of things out in the wild of ways to organize. And you're allowed to do that too, but you should make sure that it's clear. I've seen a lot of things that are not clear, and it's so frustrating. If you do it like this, I'll at least know how to read your projects, which is helpful for me as your instructor. Okay, so now that we're in our users, we need to do a little require. So at the top, I want to require that database that I dealt with before. So I'm going to say const. I'm going to destructure out the DB. I think this will work. This will be something you'll see a lot more in React world. I think this will work. If it doesn't work, we'll go back. And I will require. And now I have to say the path to which I am required. So do you guys remember where our DB was exported? In the index.js, right? And so right now, we are here, and we need to get to here. So to me, that looks a lot like /db/index.js. Technically, I think I can just do /db, and it will read the index file by default. Because index files are read by default without a specification. Fun little tidbit to know. What? All right, let's create a function that's called getAllUsers, right? Because that seems like pretty straightforward of what we're getting, or I could say getUsers. So let's create our typical function. I'm going to say const getUsers. Now, this function is going to take in a request, a response. I could pass in a next as well. I don't think I'm going to need a next right now. I'll just kind of put it in there though, so you're aware that it could be there. Okay? Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use it.
When do you use next?
When you have a piece of middleware and you want to continue on to the next function. So I'm going to set this up so I'm actually going to give back a response at the end of this. So I'm not going to want to continue. But if this was just to add or change the response object and then continue on to the next function, then I would be invoking next. Okay, so we have this DB. So I'm going to say DB because I have a DB. And then I'm going to say dot. And there's a few different things that I can call on here that I'll call sometimes. Those few things. Dot any. This is we're going to use this when we don't know how many rows we're going to get back or how many entries. So use when unsure of what you'll get back. Right? So let's say I want a user, all the users named Corey. Right? I don't know how many Corys there are. There's Corys from Boy Meets World, there's me, right? So I don't know how many will come. So I would use a dot any. Right? Let's say I'm using, the other one I might use is dot one. This is when I'm expecting one and only one thing to come back. Use with expectation of one thing coming back. So that means if I ask for one, I say, hey, give me the user where the ID is 3. And for some weird glitch in the matrix reason, we have two users with the same ID, which should never happen because a unique ID is primary key and should be unique. But if it did happen because something was set up incorrectly, it would throw an error because we should only get one thing back, not more. Not none, not many, just one. The other one that you might use is .none. This is when you don't want anything back. All of these have to do with what we are getting back from the database. Okay?
These are called.
This methods, I guess. PG promise methods. This is coming through from our PG promise. Because our PG, if we remember that DB from our index file was, we created that from invoking that PG promise function and passing in the database. So this is coming, these methods are coming to us via PG promise. So I'm going to go ahead and say .ini because I don't know how many users I have in the database and I want all of them. And I'm going to invoke this. What? Maybe you were just creating a new user and you didn't want anything back or something. I'm not sure. I don't really use none very much. I use any and one usually. Some of the material has you using none at one point, but I don't know which. I don't remember. Okay, so inside of here, what do we think PG promise might return to us? A promise, right? So if I'm doing promises, I should probably be dealing with async await and all that. I might be using try catch. So I'm also going to go ahead and just throw a async in front of this. And I'm going to say, let me call this users, because I'm going to be getting users. And I'm going to await db.ini, and then here I'm going to actually just write SQL. So I'm going to say select star from where? Users. Perfect. Okay. Right, I could do any SQL I want here. Okay, and once I get my users back, I am going to send up a response. I'm going to do a couple things. This we haven't seen, but this exists in the curriculum a lot. You can set a status, a response status. So let's say I got everything back. My status should be 200. And then I can chain that and write JSON. This is what we've been seeing. Yeah, the status? I might have briefly. And then we do that JSON, and in here I'm going to create my JSON object that I want back. So I'm going to say users, because that's referring to these users here. If you remember in ES6, in my objects, if my key and value have the exact same name, I can just write it once. So I'm only going to write users here, but that is the same as me going users pointing to users. But I'm just going to write users because it's what it is. I'm going to say status. Let's say I'm going to say success. Whatever I want to say. And maybe I'll make a message that will say all users, something. We should do a try catch, actually. That really is better practice. So I'm going to say try. I want to try all of this. going to move that inside. Catch. So something went wrong. There's an error here. Let's go ahead and how does this work? I think I can just do next, and I'll pass the error forward. So that's where I'm using next. Great. This is kind of interesting, right? Huh. SQL in a node file. Peculiar. Should we try this? Should we keep going? Or are we done? Let's try. Let's try it. Let's just see if it works, right? We should export this. So I'm going to say module.exports. I'm going to export an object, and I'm going to call it, I think I called it get users. Okay, so I want to call this function, get users, when? When do I want to call this function? Isaiah. When they hit the user's route, right? So I'm going to go back to our routes, our user's route specifically, and I'm going to import this new function. So I'm going to say const, what do I want to call this? Oh, okay, I'll do another, this is called object destructuring. So the function was called get users, and I'm going to assign that to require. And I'm going to say the relative path to where that was exported. So right now we're in users, so I need to go to .. And then there we have our, I think I have to do .. And now we can go to queries. Oh, VS Code is nice. It like really tells me, helps me with the routing. My old thing didn't do that, and I used to have to really know the path. Now I can just kind of figure it out while I'm writing it. Right? It's kind of a gnarly route, but it's okay. And this should allow us to have this function called get users. Yeah. That's it.
Our backend typically set up like this when you have the queries and then the routes. Like this is how backend is typically set up. Routes folders.
Yeah, this is a good way to set it up. It doesn't have to be, right? It could be set up differently. It could all be done in one file. This is one of the ways I would consider keeping it clean. It's split up. Okay, so now instead of this get all users, because that's not really what we want to call anymore, let's go ahead and just write get users. Whoops. This is our function. So now whenever we go to / we should get back, we should hit this callback function here, get users, which we know is this querying thing. That's going to go query our database for all the users. Hopefully this will work. Otherwise, we'll be doing debugging. Ready? Let's try it. So I'm going to go back to Postman. I'm going to hit send. We got an error. Cannot read property any of undefined. What do you mean the server
As
crashed?
soon as you finish, your server crashed. Like,
Oh, here we go. Right. Cannot read property of any of undefined. That means our DB isn't coming in correctly. So instead of writing the destructuring, I'm just going to go like this. I think because of the way I exported it, this, I think because it's already an object. Yeah, so when I exported, I just exported DB. I didn't wrap it in the object, so I don't want to actually destructure it. Pretty sure that's the issue. Um, I used to do it a little differently, so I wasn't sure which one was which. Okay, so if I say DB here, I think this is going to work. If not, let's just make sure the server's running. If not, we'll do a different debugging. Nope. We get this object with the key users that points to an array of our users in the database. We got Korsky, John, Jania, Celine, Jerry, my father. And we also have our status, success, our message, all users. If you did not get this, yeah, let's just take a couple minutes here to figure this out so we can all be on the same page. If you did not get this, raise your hand. Jania, John, and myself, we will start chipping away at it.
I mean, I'm sorry, I had to it never changed. It always
Got it? It has something to do with it. It's all around.
No.
Thank you.
Next.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, no, I'm in class right now.
But it should be where you say.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, this is mine. I put it in that's already running. Remember, this shit got real. I had the file, we never built. He swapped it, but did you do the SQL? So if you didn't do that, whatever's in the database is what is in your old rover. So if your old rover is only had that. This one is crazy. This not service not like it's crazy. Throw it down and find crazy. So why don't we want? Yes.
Make sure
You want to database one of the for a day like this, his thing was like, put it on top of yeah, apparently I'm
But it's also should I have a second? No, that's not. Oh.
We won't have the object. I think the first
Okay, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. All right, so I think we are mostly all got there because nobody else said they needed it. Okay, that was a little brutal. Okay, so something. So what are we doing here? What's something we haven't done yet? That we've been doing a lot of, but we haven't done it yet with our PG Promise. What might be a really different situation?
I was gonna say
Debugging? Well, I feel like I've just done a lot of debugging.
Using the data from the
Okay, using data from database? Yeah, maybe. What else? Tell me a bit about our SQL statement here and what it does. Okay, returning JSON, yeah.
Want to put it into a table?
Into a table. All right, so we're not quite getting at what I'm trying to get at, so I'm just gonna cut it. So right now we're just selecting star from users. So we don't know. There's no specification whatsoever. It's just we want all the users. A lot of the times when we're making queries so far, we've had a lot more specific specification, right? Like what if I want one user, very specific user, right? How am I going to add that in here, right? So let's go ahead and start with the route and then go ahead and create the query. So we'll go to our users route here. If I want to get it based off of an ID, it'd be users.get /:ID, right? And then this should call some function. I'm going to call this get user. I don't currently have a user. That's what I'm going to be writing now. I'm going to require this from somewhere. It's going to be from the same file as my other queries. So now the route should be all ready whenever I write the actual function. Right, remember. Now what is this called? Parameter, right? This is a URL parameter. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our queries and start to write a function called getUser. Const getUser. It's going to take in a request, a response, and a next. And I have to say get user. But yeah, we should use async. Good idea. Okay, so far this is pretty much the same of what we just did, right? So this should feel, hopefully it doesn't feel brand new yet. Okay, let's go ahead and create our try catch. catch, air, I should spell catch right. And on the air, we'll just call next and pass the air. All right, that's kind of a boilerplate code here. So in here, let's say I just want the one thing, right? I'm going to get something by their ID. I'm going to call let user because I want a user back. I'm going to say await because I'm going to be dealing with promises, so I'm in the asynchronous world. And I'm going to say db dot one because I want one thing. And now we have to go ahead and write our SQL. So let's do it. Let's say select star from users where, I'll make that caps, ID equals, now there's a couple ways I could do this, okay, and although the way for this seems pretty easy, it's really important to still learn the other ways because there'll sometimes be things when you're doing more than just one thing. Right? I could use basic string concatenation here. Request.params.id. Right? And then I'm just going to send back my response. So I'm going to say res.status, send back a 200.json, object, I'm going to say user, because that's the same key value pair that I'm going to be dealing with. I'll put a status in here that says success, and a message that says one user retrieved or something. So this is one way for me to do this. I could use string concatenation. Seems familiar, hopefully. Let's go ahead and just try it. I'm going to go here. I have a user, looks like Jerry. Let's get Jerry, who's my favorite user there. So I'll say /5, send, and we get our successful Jerry.
Did you just add a comment for the export?
I already wrote that in the beginning. Good question. Okay, so this works. Fine and dandy.
Can you go to users on the routes?
Sure, so the user's routes just has the ID and get user. So if you're still getting errors, it's because you have written something wrong. I mean, I know that seems obvious, but like, call us over and we'll help you. Just know that it's a detail. Don't worry.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay. Uh, anybody still lost on that one? Okay. Clap your hands once if you hear my voice. Okay, so there's a few other ways to pass information back that it's important for you to know. Okay? So this is one way, string concatenation. The other thing I could do here is instead of string concatenation, I will get rid of this. And I will create this count. I'm going to say $1. Okay? What? Yeah, right? And now, db whatever takes in a second argument. Okay? So, comma, this is the second argument in my db.1. My first argument is my query. The second argument can be of three different things. It can be an object, an array, or a single thing. So this is going to be a little bit funky. Okay? So as a single thing, I could put my ID directly right here. So I could say request.params.id. Okay? So I'm no longer creating concatenation. Just going to fill in that one. Because I have one thing. Try it, prove it. Still works.
So what does the one do? $1?
The one refers to the one argument here.
So if it was two,
This whole thing will replace this.
So if it was two arguments.
So if it was two things, I would have to put this as an array, like this. So let's say I'm going after, I forget so 5 is Jerry, right? So let's say I had an and in here, where I said and name like $2. Right? The 1 refers to the first item in the array. The 2 refers to the second item in the array. So let's say I just say Gary here. I'm hard coding it because this isn't really part of my route. I'm just kind of doing this as a demonstration. Right? You obviously wouldn't write Jerry like that in the back end, for real. I'll save this. Run it. Everything should still work the same, and it does. So you can always put it in an array. And then we'll read it, and these $sign numbers will be read in the order to which things are listed in the array.
So,
Yes.
if you had a name, Jeremy, right? And you did the and name like
All right.
$2, is it going to show Jeremy as well?
Depends on how your like works. When you say like in SQL, I think it's checking for equivalency, unless I tell it other things. It's not a good way for me to answer that because I think what you're thinking in SQL is a little off. But if it was like Jerry with some like wild card of whatever else, and there was a Jerry me or something, then it would include both. But it would actually throw an error though, because I'm saying db.1.
Okay.
Fowler.
So the dollar sign doesn't work like regular dollar sign.
No.
The SQL query dollar signs.
This is a PG promise thing.
Uh,
This is only within the world of PG promise that I'm aware of. The dollar sign just represents the order of the arguments. So I'm going to get rid of the like to because that doesn't really make any sense. But I will keep this in an array because that's probably better practice anyway.
So the $2 is for
There is no dollar sign to it.
no. I'm saying if you were to put it.
Oh, kept it in, right?
Is for the second argument of what?
The second element in the array. It's a variable, right? The dollar sign, whatever number, refers to whatever order it is in the array. First, second, third, fourth. Doug.
So you pass in the object instead of the dollar sign, you put the name of the
Almost. So Doug's wanting to know about the object that I said we could pass him. That's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to handle these questions first. Any other questions? Right? There's not too much to accept here. It's just that if you are putting a piece of information into this, you can do $1, $2, and then you pass in the second argument of an array. The elements in the array in order are the same number that correlate with the same number that's in the SQL query. That's all it is. Right, so we have like first, second, and third. Right, we have $1 and a $2 and a $3. This will replace this. The second will replace the second thing. The third thing will replace the third. That's all that's happening. And the more you use it, it won't be that big of a deal, right? You use it two times, it will be like, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah, no, as many as you want.
So if you had inside the array, if you had rec.params.id,
Okay.
comma, rec.params.name,
Yep.
that's gonna rec.params.name is gonna be the number 2.
If
The-
I
the-
had, it would be the
the-
number
the-
1 would be first be the rec.params.id, and then wherever the number 2 shows up would become rec.params.name. Just like that one.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Gotcha.
Rock and roll. Okay. Let's do a post. Let's create a brand new user. Okay? So let's write a function called create user. So I'm going to say const create user. This takes in a request, a response, a next. And this is an asynchronous thing here that we're going to be doing. Fat arrow function. We'll do our try catch. Error. We have our next. Error. Okay. Let's also go ahead and export it while we're here. So I'll say create user, export, and inside of our try, let's go ahead and create our user. So, all right, let's just start with, so let's say we don't really want anything back, right? We don't need to necessarily see the new user that we just created. Maybe we want to, but for now, let's say we don't. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to go ahead and write await db.none, because I don't want anything back. And I have to insert information, right? So I'm going to say insert into users. Oops. And then what do I write? What do we remember? Almost, right? I think we have to say, or do we have to say that here, or is that in values? We do the arguments, right? Okay. So it's going to take in a name. What else is it going to take in?
Age.
An age. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Just takes in a name and an age, right? Okay, and then we're going to write our values. So we'll say values. And this is also then a parenthesis. Closing. Oops. So we could be doing dollar signs. Now this is going to be slightly different because we're going to get a request out body, right? We're going to end up with this object. Is there a better marker than this? We're going to end up with this object that's a name pointing to, let's say, Cup. I don't know. The name will be Cup. Can't think of a name right now. Oh, Chuck. Chuck rhymes with Cup. Kind of. Okay. And we'll have age. Chuck will be like 8 years old, whatever. But we're going to get this object. This is going to be our request. Hopefully we've seen something like that before. Okay. So because we're going to have this object with the name and the age, this is the syntax we're going to write for our value. We are going to say $, name. This is going to give us this name. We write our comma, and I'm going to say $, object age. So out of the object, I want to take the age key. And then as my second argument, I'm just going to pass in request.body. Okay, beneath this, let's give back a nice response. Res.json, or I can do status. I'll stay consistent to earlier to today. Status 200.json, and let's just go ahead and give it a message that says new user created, and I'll give it a status pointing to success. Thank you. Jason. That's the French way. Celine taught me. I told her it wasn't real, but she insisted. Okay, so that's how the object's syntax is going to look. That's it. Wherever you're trying to pass in things, so say $object and the key from that object that you're trying to take the value. Okay, so that's the 3 ways. Just concatenation or a loose argument, the $ numbers that refer to an array, and then the $ object and the key within that object. Those are the 3 ways. Okay, so let's go ahead and add these routes. So let's also go ahead and say users dot what kind of request? Post. And we'll just say add slash, and we will do create user, and I should also import it. Create user. Let's test it. let's make a check. So we'll go over to our postman, change this to post. Up here, we'll go to the body, XXX form. For name, let's put in Chuck. For age, let's put in 8. We'll send, and we should get back. Oh, we got back an error. Because I'm not at the right route. All right. It should just be /user. Try again, and we get new user created, success. And if I change my post to a GET request, we should be able to see all of our users now, which should include, includes Chuck at the bottom. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So if for some reason I did want to see the user that I created, because let's say I wanted access to their ID right away, I could change my route here, my query, so that instead of saying db.none, I could do 1. I could say let user, or I'll call this new user. I'll just call it user. And then at the end of this query, I'll add returning star. If and I could specify exactly what I want to return, but let's say I just want to return everything. Just by making that small change. Now if we go to our post, and we update our name, so let's give me another name. Joe. Joe. And we'll let's make her 70. Okay, we can hit send, and this time we will get a response. Oh shit, I didn't actually. Fuck. We didn't add it in here, right? So we can just say user. Let's do it again. Okay, let's create a new. Let's create another. I don't want to have like duplicates. That's the thing. Let's say Sam. Sam is also 70. Is actually in a relationship with JoJo, and we'll send. And now we get an error. Brilliant.
So you want to be in a relationship with JoJo?
This users is not defined. Okay, so we've missed user. Right, instead of users. Thank you, Kenya. Let's try it again. New error, duplicate key. So I think I probably said like unique or something on one of them before. I did, right? Just as an example, right? So the first one, it went through, it just broke on the route. So let's just go ahead and create someone else. Let's say Nancy, 70. There we go. And now we also got our new user, right? Her ID is 10. Her name is Nancy. Her age is 7. So we wanted to do something immediately with her ID. This is an easy way for us to access it. Just by adding a quick returning star. That's why I don't really use returning none very often. But there's no problem using that. Hey. Line 23? What's there? Returning star. So that gave me the entire new entry. I could have specified like just ID. Then I would have gotten a little object with an ID. Okay. So, I know it's been long. So we're going to take a mini break, but also have something to work on. Okay? So what do I mean by that? I'm going to give you like 20 minutes, and then you can figure out how long of a break you want. Okay, so what I want you to do, I'm going to write it here. I want you to create a delete route for a user. Then create routes for pets. Right? So I want a new pet, get all pets, get all pets for one user. Okay, and that's probably a good start. Yeah, I mean you can continue to build these out on your own. Also, you could use a patch request or a put request. Okay, so let's actually just do this till about 9:15. Okay, because I know it's a lot, and we're going to be a little slow in the beginning. Yeah, Tom? Line what? Okay, I'm going to push what I currently have